the Rashba, fine, that's one camp. But the Rambam has a completely different approach. The Rambam, also a Sephardi, but a different type of Sephardi, the Rambam says that he disagrees. He doesn't really spell it out, he's not quoting them, but he has an entirely different approach, a very fascinating approach. I printed it here too to read you some of the words, but here is the Rambam writes this, as far as I know, in two places, in the Hakdama to the Yad HaChazaka. The Yad HaChazaka is the halachos the Rambam wrote. He called it Mishnah Torah. Schechter always likes to point out there are some svarim that the authors name them, but they like a little bit uncomfortable. For Schechter's other example is the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. Mishnah Torah is like Sefer Dvarim. And the Rambam is pretty explicit about why he calls it that. He thinks you don't need another Torah after this. You need the Torah Shebechsav, and after that all you need is his Sefer. His Sefer covers all of the Gemaras, everything else. You don't need any other svarim. So he called it Mishnah Torah. This is the review of all of the Torah in one spot. So that's a name, Rav Schechter says, that didn't really stick with Klal Yisrael, so we call it the Yad HaChazaka. It's not really true. A lot of people do call it the Mishnah Torah, but I usually do call it the Yad HaChazaka. Why? It's just so I could end up having 5 minutes to take away from any given shir when I quote it. So the Hakdama to the Yad HaChazaka, which follows, it's on the tail end of the Minyan HaMitzvos. The Rambam wrote Sefer HaMitzvos in the beginning of the introduction, basically, to the Yad HaChazaka, is a Minyan HaMitzvos, a Sefer HaMitzvos. The Sefer HaMitzvos has an introduction too. The introduction is called the Shrashim. That's 14 rules by which he counts his mitzvahs. So he tells you what counts as a mitzvah, what doesn't count a mitzvah. That's how he gets to the count of 613 positive and negative commandments. That Sefer of Sefer HaMitzvos was supposed to serve as an introduction and also a checklist for the Rambam. The Rambam wanted to write all of the Torah, all of the halacha, all of the dinim, all of the mitzvahs for you in his Yad HaChazaka. So he wrote for himself a checklist of the 613 mitzvahs so that as he did every halacha, he could look and make sure he covered everything. It's unbelievable the way the Rambam's mind worked. He had everything mapped out from the start. So after the Sefer HaMitzvos, I guess he realized it was a little bit cumbersome, so he wrote it again in shorthand. That's called the Minyan HaMitzvos HaKatzar, which means shorthand. And then following that, right before he starts the Yad HaChazaka, he has a short paragraph of an introduction. There he mentions the existence of dinim derabanan. He says like this: V'yesh mitzvos acheros shenischadshu achar matan Torah v'kavu osan neviim v'chacham v'pashtu b'chol Yisrael k'go mikra megillah v'ner Chanukah. Those are daraisas, but there exist also mitzvos midarabanan like mikra megillah and like neres Chanukah. Ve'enam tosefes al mitzvah Torah. That's the Rambam asking this question. How are they not additional? How are they not an issue of Baal Tosif? How are the Chacham not adding to the Torah by making Chanukah and by making Purim? V'almai is here a Torah lo Tosif lo Tigra. Shalo yeh navi rashai lechadesh davar v'lo mesh HaKadosh Baruch Hu tzivahu b'mitzvah zo lo sifa le'mitzvahs HaTorah o lechaser achas me'elu ashesh meos v'shalosh esrei mitzvos. Says the Rambam that the issue of Baal Tosif is that the Torah says, don't come along and say that the Torah has more mitzvahs. Listen closely, you'll hear the difference in a second. Don't come along and say the Torah says 613, but the Torah really meant 614. The Torah really meant 612. That's a violation of Baal Tosif. To say there's another mitzvah, de'oraisa. Ava, im hosifu beistim im navi, sheyeh ba'oso azman, mitzvah derech takana, o derech hora'a, o derech gezerah, ein zeh tosefes, shari lo amru sha'kadosh baruch hu tziva la'asos eruv, o likras ha'megillah ba'onasa, v'ilu amru kein, hayu mosifin ala Torah. The Rambam says a huge, very critical difference. It's not about the fact that there's a smachtas, even if there isn't an smachta. What the Rambam says is that it's only an issue of Baal Tosif. Listen carefully here. It's only an issue of Baal Tosif, says the Rambam, if you come along and claim that you're adding a mitzvah daraisa. If you claim you're adding a new mitzvah min haTorah, that's a violation of Baal Tosif because you're saying the Torah was not done and I'm adding more Torah. So that's a problem of Baal Tosif. That's what the Rambam says. However, if you came along and said, I don't have a new mitzvah daraisa, there's 613, case closed. I am adding, as a rabbi who's entitled to, a mitzvah, not really talking for myself here, I am adding a mitzvah midarabanan, something which is clearly midarabanan. Chanukah and Purim, I'm telling you they're darabanan. I'm adding that even though it's true that the Torah says basar and chalav are aser, meat and milk are aser, I'm adding, as the Rabbanan, that also chicken and milk are aser. What are you doing? You're adding mitzvahs. No, I'm telling you right now, it's only the Rabbanan, and there's going to be differences. Safik the Rabbanan lakula, right? There's going to be differences between meat and between chicken when it comes to combining with milk. So as long as I enunciate and make it clear and proclaim that I'm not trying to add to the Torah, I'm adding a dirabanan to your life as a halachic Jew, that clarifies the distinction. That is not a violation anymore of Baal Tosif, says the Rambam. That's what the Rambam is the answer to this question of how the rabbis were not in violation of Baal Tosif. Yeah. Did Google get back to you or something? No, so the Gemara deals with that. The Gemara deals with that. That Asher Kedeshana b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu. What are you talking about? I thought you have to be clear that it's not mitzvosav v'tzivanu. It's from the rabbis. So the Gemara says, yeah, but there is a mitzvah in the Torah, either shalavicha bi'agedcha, Zekenecha v'yomru lach, or the pasuk of Lo Sasam and Davar Asher Yagidu L'cha Yaminu Small. There's a mitzvah that you have to listen to the rabbis. So once the rabbi said it's Derabanan, there's a mitzvah to listen to those rabbis. So the Gemara, you're just asking the Gemara's questions, which in a previous generation, in this generation, we give you a round of applause for answering the Gemara. Back in the day, they'd smack you. How do you not know the Gemara? What does that mean? Okay, but it's a good question. It's a good, right? That's a good, and they definitely would have smacked you back then.